This is a follow-up video to a video I did in the past about parasites and a potential conspiracy by the medical system, or mostly the Western medical system, to ignore parasites and to pretend that we don't get parasites. And so I just want to preface this video by saying that I'm not giving any medical advice here. I'm just talking about my own personal experiences, and that everyone, of course, should do their own research and be careful whenever dealing with anything medical. And I would say that you should also rely on the power of prayer, because God can heal your body. And prayer, this is something that even before I was religious, I knew I had heard of real studies, like scientific, back when I used to think that meant something. Scientific studies have proven that prayer heals people. And so I don't want to discount prayer, but I'm gonna talk about parasites, and I'm not going to talk about things that I talked about in my first video, so I'll make sure to link that in the description. If you didn't watch my first parasite video, go ahead and go watch it. This is going to be mostly a follow-up, so I'll just tell you really quickly what I did. And so this is just because I had general gastrointestinal issues, nothing extreme. I didn't have IBS or anything crazy, but I've lived with, I don't want to say mild, worse than mild stomach and intestinal discomfort for a good part of my adult life. And I have never done a parasite cleanse before in my life. It's just never something that I've thought about, because, and this is where I think the conspiracy comes in. It's almost like a conspiracy by omission, by not talking about it. When Western doctors go to medical school, do they ever teach about parasites and parasite cleansing and talk about it in a way where it's like, yeah, basically everybody gets parasites. It's a part of life here, that parasites exist. I don't know, but I just know that I never thought like, oh, I might have a parasite. It's one of those, you think it's a freak thing that only happens to people if they visit a third world country or something. And not all parasites are worms. I mean, look at this picture, different looking. So even if you do a parasite cleanse and it may be working, you may not see worms, and it still may help you. And yeah, I guess this is supposed to be a conclusion video, right? So again, you can go watch my previous video on it. It did help me. And this is just anecdotal evidence, and I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just talking about my own personal experience. My intestines have been way better, and my stomach, after doing a parasite cleanse. And I did see things come out when I did a parasite cleanse. At first, I wasn't sure. I was like, is this like, I mean, sorry, talking about bathroom stuff here. Am I seeing like fiber? Am I passing like white fiber strands? But it's like, I don't see that anymore, now that I've stopped taking the cleanse, because, like I said, I'm not giving any medical advice here. I'm not going to tell you how to do a cleanse. You got to go research yourself and decide what sounds right for you. Go ask your doctor. Say you think you might have parasites. See what they tell you. But after stopping taking the cleanse, because you don't do it for a long time. I used wormwood, which is very strong. That is medicine that is actually like verging on poison. And so you have to be extra careful if you're dealing with herbal medicines that start to venture towards the more stronger. This is almost like you're taking a medicine from a doctor. Like this isn't just a light remedy here. So yeah, I do want to say that if you are doing something with wormwood, you should be very, very careful, and of course listen to your body and all that, and do your research. Make sure that you're taking the right doses of things. But anyways, when I stopped the cleanse that I took, I stopped seeing the white, ambiguous, what I was like, it's either a small white worm or it's like some fiber from plant I ate or something. But anyways, so that's the proof I have that the cleanse was actually doing something. The physical, the like I can see it proof. But I'll just say, just because you don't see worms, that doesn't mean that you didn't have parasites. There's different parasites that don't look like worms. And yeah, that's mostly it. So I'll just say it worked for me, the parasite cleanse. There's another thing too that I have tried, diatomaceous earth. And this one, what I want to say about this is that I find it very interesting that on my bag of I'll just call this DE, diatomaceous earth, on my bag of food grade DE, I thought it was really interesting that they only talked about it as being a caking agent. They're like, add this to your animal feed as an anti-caking agent, which I find very interesting because it's like, that isn't the main, it may work like that. DE may be an anti-caking agent, but you're not giving it to your chickens or whatever in order to be an anti-caking agent. You're usually giving it to them as an anti-parasite, so anti-parasitic. And I just wanted to say that it seems like sometimes there's things that are very good, medicines or cures for things, but it gets sold in a way where they sell it as not a medicine. It's not like, you don't see people out there selling DE as like a get parasites out of your body. It's just like you learn that, oh, it does this. But when you go look at the packaging, it's not going to tell you, oh, take this much and you're going to get rid of parasites in your body. I just find that very interesting. Almost like a conspiracy to cover up the fact that they know that, hey, we have these pretty safe things out there that do work as anti-parasites, but we're not going to tell you about it. If any good knowledge out there is going to be gate kept by people. And yeah, I'd love to hear in the comments if any of you guys have tried parasite cleanses, if they worked for you, if you suffer from GI problems and you've ever considered parasite cleanse. So what interests me a lot about this is the fact that you hear so much today about IBS and people with intestinal issues, but you don't ever hear them talking about parasites, and parasites cause those very issues. It's like an elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, right? And so that's where I think the conspiracy comes in, that most doctors probably just are duped and they don't even think about it because nobody brings it up. They just think, oh, parasites, that's for like third world countries. So that's it. I just wanted to do a video to follow up because I did a parasite video in the past. Maybe some of you were wondering, hey, whatever happened to, did the cleanse work? For me, it worked. And for me, I saw things. So I am almost certain that I was infected with parasites. And I've traveled around. See, that's the thing though too, where we think that because we live in I live in America, I'm not infested with parasites. But I mean, I've traveled around. I've traveled to Mexico before and gotten Mexico sick. So yeah, it was almost like a no-brainer. I was like, you know what? I would be more surprised than not if I didn't have parasites. You know, I've lived my whole life up to this point and I've never cleansed myself of parasites. Why would I not have any? I'll just think of one more little thing that I've thought of. I think this is the big reason why you shouldn't bite your nails. And I'll just throw that out there because I think that's another way that people can get parasites, from biting their nails. And it's something that I've tried to stop doing. That's just another health-related parasite thing that I've tried to stop biting my nails, because I would bite my nails. Not super extreme, but you know, it's just a fast and convenient way to trim your nails. But now I wait it out until I can get my hands on some nail clippers, because I think that is, I just read that somewhere and it just rang true. I was like, oh yeah, I probably should not bite my nails, because, you know, I go in the garden and stuff digging around. That's how it happens. I don't have pets, but that's another one that people should know, that if you're around pets, well, your pets can very much get parasites and they can pass it off to you. Okay. I'm going to read some Bible verses. Revelation chapter 22, verse 2. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. I'll just end this with saying that my health journey is still continuing. I want to bring it back to the prayer thing. I think that for health, people become overly obsessed with health, and it's like almost like a worshiping of the body thing. Like it becomes the most important thing in their life. Like I must make my body the most physically fit possible, and like never wanting to die. I don't know if people do it because they're afraid of dying or what, but I know that that's not the way. We aren't supposed to totally obsess over our health, but God gave us healing herbs, and so that's something that I'm dipping my toes into right now, herbalism, and learning what healing herbs grow around me. And I guess I'll just throw it out there. There's this YouTube channel, She Is of the Woods, and I should pray for this person that they find Jesus, because unfortunately, usually these herbalism people, obviously they're going to lean more towards the nature worship, and they often still think that they live on a spinny space ball. But I think that they should realize, hey, the Bible says, and it just makes sense with God. God is the one who gave us all these herbs that are healing. The Bible talks about healing herbs. And when God made creation and the seed-bearing herbs, he saw that it was good. Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And so, yeah, I've made a few tinctures, waiting on those to be all infused. It's just a little something that I'm starting to look into, healing herbs as opposed to pharmakia. I mean, I don't go to the doctor. I've never had a physical in my life. I don't go to the doctor. I can't remember the last time, I guess in college, but I had like a terrible flu, and I went to the hospital, and they were really rude and horrible. It was a terrible experience. That's the last time I went to a doctor, and I can't even remember the last time I had a checkup. It's just, it's one thing that I'm thankful for my dad. My dad is not into hospitals or doctors, and I actually do appreciate that, because, I've never gone to a doctor and in my adult life, and I'm fine. My health is fine. And I don't think that you need to go have your blood drawn. And look at how people look at blood drawing in the past, and they're like, oh, look at how primitive they were in the past, bloodletting. Are you kidding me? How thirsty for blood the doctors are these days? I try to explain it. Again, I'm not giving any medical advice here, but me personally, I think that that's just as bad as bloodletting, when doctors take out tons of people's blood to do tests. I would have to be in such bad condition. I would have to be desperate to be like, yes, doctor, please take my blood and figure out what's wrong with me. In general, I think that taking your blood out of your body is probably a bad idea, but it's nothing to doctors. But again, in the same breath, they'll say how stupid people were in times past for bloodletting. Exodus chapter 12, verse 8, and they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. A lot of medicinal herbs are bitter, and yeah, I don't consider myself like a health or lifestyle channel or any. I just want to encourage people to think for themselves, and I think that the bitter herbs here is talking about medicinal herbs, and yeah, many medicinal herbs are bitter. Luke chapter 11, verse 42, but woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment and the love of God. These ought you to have done, and not to leave the other undone. I picked this because mint, a ton of healing herbs are of the mint family. 2 of my tinctures were mint family. I did a tincture of, it's called Self-Heal. Why don't they teach about this stuff in class, in school? In school growing up, why don't you learn about the healing herbs that grow in your neighborhood? No, they make you do a bunch of BS. So yeah, there's an herb called Self-Heal, which is in the mint family, and also lemon balm is another one that I made a tincture of recently, also in the mint family. What do you know? The Pharisees were holding mint in high esteem. I believe it's just a great healing herb, and people used to cook a lot more with healing herbs. They would throw a ton of herbs and things. It reminds me of a lot of Thai food has like tons of mint mixed in with it. Also, there's a lot of Middle Eastern salads, right, that are just like very high herb content. I do believe herbs are healing, but this is getting at the point I was saying, people take it too far. Don't forget about prayer. Herbs can be healing. I think that it is the way that God intended us to heal our bodies. I think that he gave us everything we need down here, but prayer is going to trump that every time. Prayer is going to be above. With God, anything is possible. Even supernatural healing. Supernatural healing is more powerful than mint. And I think that's the point of this. Rue. Anyways, medicinal and culinary purposes. People used to cook. I already said this, but yeah, people used to cook a lot more with medicinal herbs. I just want to throw this out there, though. It's like, it's the antithesis, right, of a modern diet featuring like McDonald's and super processed. What is like the antithesis of the terrible diets that we have today? It's like going out on the land and just eating something right off of the ground. And that's much closer to what God wanted us to be doing than a McDonald's hamburger. Lamentations chapter 3 verse 15. He hath filled me with bitterness. He hath made me drunken with wormwood. Wormwood is a big part of Revelation as well. I believe that the star Betelgeuse is wormwood and is going to crash down when the heavens open up. I don't know. That's just a wild guess I have. 2 Kings chapter 4 verses 39 and 40. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds his lapful, and came and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. So here it actually is getting into the thing of, it used to be way more common to go grab a bunch of herbs and like throw them in a pot, and just it would be a part of your stew. They used to cook a lot more with wild herbs. So that would be one prayer that I have for people who see the healing power of herbs, to see that God made it this way, that it's because God made it this way. It's not some Mother Nature Gaia pagan Wicca thing. It's because God is great, and God is good, and God is merciful, and he gave us everything we need down here to heal us. So they poured out for the men to eat, and it came to pass as they were eating of the pottage that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there was death in the pot, and they could not eat thereof. So I wanted to throw this in here because a lot has happened since the Garden of Eden. Since God's creation, when he looked upon his creation and saw that it was good, a lot has come and passed since then. And I don't know. It would be an interesting question. In the Garden of Eden, were there any poisonous plants? Or has that come over time with corruption? So I just wanted to throw this in there as a reminder. Do your research. Don't go out in the field and grab something that you don't know. They say they knew them not. They were out there gathering random things and threw them in a pot. Okay, don't do that. Lots of knowledge has been passed down. And of course, there's all sorts of corruption and BS out there and lies. But use your discernment. And with the internet these days, there's almost no excuse for people to be ignorant about stuff. Yeah, wild cucumber is toxic. So this is the type of knowledge that we should be teaching children. And I don't know why we didn't. Well, I do know why we weren't taught stuff like this, because the education system is not there to teach you important, useful life lessons that ground you and make you feel human and appreciate God and his creation. That's not what school is about. Anyways, I think I've said everything that I need to say. I hope you enjoyed this video, and God bless everyone.